Hey, Astro Kids, and welcome back. This is your March 2021 horoscope for all water signs. So, if you are a Cancer moon or ascendant, Scorpio moon or ascendant, or Pisces moon or ascendant, this is for you. So, let's go ahead and jump right into these major horoscopes going on here in the month of March 2021. And so there's a lot going on here with the moon as it will be transiting from Virgo all the way into Scorpio throughout this entire transit. And it will return back into the sign of Scorpio. So this is a full round motion of the moon. Of course, the moon is always changing every 2 to 3 days. And so we will get into a lot of these moon positions as we get into the weekly horoscopes. But for this particular horoscope, I'm going to go ahead and skip to the major events that are happening with the moon. And so to start off, the moon is going to be in the sign of Virgo as we're shifting here into this new month. And so there's a lot here in terms of analyzing and tapping into the details, tapping into the information, seeing all sides, and being able to navigate and problem solve. That we're sort of here in this more analytical, more practical type of energy to start off this particular transit. And of course, this is going to depend upon where Virgo is placed in your chart and what is going on in that chart. Of course, this is a general horoscope. You want to make sure that you're understanding all of those planets and how they're affecting your chart. I cannot see all of your charts, so I'm here to give you this general forecast. And so, depending on all of those planetary positions and everything going on in your personal chart, this is going to vary. But as we come over into the 5th of March, the moon is getting closer to Rahu. And so we're going to see, I'm sorry, to K2. So we're going to see this conjunction of the moon and K2 and Jeshta. Of course, we've seen this before. The moon is constantly going through this cycle of shifting from sign to sign every 2 to 3 days. But remember that this moon conjunct K2 is very important, especially as it is in Jeshta, a lot of deep knowledge and insight that can come from this association of these two planets, especially with K2 being that shadow planet that connects us into our previous lifetimes, into our karmas, into our spiritual wisdom. So this becomes a very mystical planet of K2, where there's a lot of spirituality connected to this particular planet, there to take you out of the physical dimension and show you the secrets or mysteries of the spiritual realm. And so this becomes very important as there's a lot here in terms of transformation and tapping deep into this inner knowledge and wisdom. And especially for those of you with a water sign, as this is going to be in your major houses, right? For those of you with Scorpio, this is going to take place in your first house. And for those of you with Cancer and Pisces, this is going to take place in a Trachona house. And so this becomes a major influence coming into this month here of March. Now, as we come on to the 9th of March, the moon is going to meet up with Jupiter and Saturn. So remember that we've had this Jupiter and Saturn transit here in Capricorn for quite a while now. The moon coming in to join up with this group. And I did add Pluto in there. A lot of people have been asking me about these three extra planets and their effects in Vedic astrology. And so that Pluto that is sitting there in Capricorn is contributing to really rebuilding and breaking things down in terms of our society, our structure, and our status, our position, our worldly view, a lot that is shifting and changing as we know. And of course, that has a lot to do with that Jupiter Saturn conjunction that we saw back in December as well. But there's a lot here in terms of shifting our whole society and our whole world as we know it. Those planets of Jupiter and Saturn have a lot to do with the structure, the law, the religion, the government. And so there's a lot here that's shifted worldly and continuing to shift here. Pluto adding into this shift and transformation, as Pluto has a lot to do with breaking things down to their purest, simplest form and putting it back together in the right order. And so there's a lot here that is being changed and shifted for many of us here with this major Capricorn influence. Now, of course, a lot has shifted here as we come into the month of March as far as planets that have shifted into the sign of Aquarius. There's a lot that's going to be going on here in Aquarius. And we have a combust Venus that is really the struggle of this entire transit of all of this energy that is accumulated here in Aquarius. This combust Venus really is not only in its enemy sign, I'm sorry, not only in a friendly sign where it prefers to be, but it is combust, it's damaged, right? Venus doesn't function quite well when it's this close to the sun, where it is sort of being burnt out. All of those good qualities of Venus are being burnt out through the sun's rays, and so there's a lot here in terms of your value systems, in terms of what you're indulging in, what you're seeking pleasure in, and making sure that everything is ethical, that everything is above board during this transit becomes very, very important. Now, we do have Mercury that has shifted over into the sign of Aquarius. Along with that, and as we come forward, we're going to see a new moon happen in Aquarius as well. Now, this is going to happen towards the end of Aquarius here in the Shadabasha Nakshatra. And so this will take place on the 13th of March, where we're going to see this new moon that really opens us up into our karma, our duty, our responsibility. Remember that as we're shifting here towards the end of Aquarius, where we're coming out of this Capricorn phase of our duty, our responsibility, everything becomes more karmic, more spiritual as it's taking us to this higher dimension coming into the sign of Pisces. And so there is something big here about following your spiritual responsibilities, following your duty, making sure that you are facing those shadow aspects of yourself. Remember that Aquarius is controlled by Rahu, which is a shadow planet, right? There's shadowy aspects to this sign of Aquarius, where this nakshatra of Shadabasha is connected to the thousand petaled lotus, but there's the flip side of that, that is the thousand armies of demons, where it's like, are you taking care of your lower nature? Are you rising above it? Are you stepping up to your call and your duty and your dharma in life? This becomes a huge central focus as we are shifting ahead, especially as that shadow aspect of Aquarius becomes very cunning, very deceptive. Remember, that's that Rahu influence where there is this snake like energy to Rahu of this deception, this cunning, this ability to really sort of get around things and take shortcuts and do things in a very unethical and eccentric type of way. And so this becomes a huge central focus here of, are you going to do things in the right way? Are you going to follow your truth, your purpose, your duty in life? And especially as Mars is now starting to come into this conjunction now with Rahu. And so there's a lot here in terms of, are you acting in your purpose, in your karmic duty, in your dharma? Or are you trying to sneak around and take shortcuts and get things the way that you want them? And this is where this Taurus energy is not going to budge, right? As Mars is here in Taurus, there's a lot here in terms of building slowly, taking your time, doing the right steps. And of course, if you want to know more about this Mars and Taurus transit, make sure to go ahead and check out that video there's a link above and down below in the description. And there are two parts to that video. So if you are in the group of Cancer individuals, then you want to look at part one. That is going to show you how this Mars and Taurus transit is really going to affect you as a whole. And then if you are falling in the Scorpio and the Pisces group, then you want to go to part two of that video. So on the 14th, the sun is going to shift into the sign of Pisces. And so this is taking us into a new central focus where this becomes less about humanity in the future and innovation and all of these clever ideas. And now it becomes deeper. Now we're going to the spiritual depths. Remember that Pisces is the deepest sign there is in the zodiac, where it pulls us into this other realm of thought, this other world, so to speak. Right? If we think about Pisces as being the deepest part of the ocean, it's like being submerged into another realm, another dimension of thought. And so as we come into this space of the sun in Pisces, this really becomes a great time to explore your spirituality, to explore your imagination, to tap into those inner creative realms within the mind, within the subconscious, and really pull that out to the surface. And for many of you, this becomes a great time if there is some subconscious work that needs to take place. If you're seeing ego issues arise, if you're seeing problems in your life come up, figuring out what the roots are to that, figuring out what the subconscious inner workings behind that are. This really becomes a great time to dive deep into this, to dive deep into self reflection, into meditation, into retreat, into isolation, to really tap into the deepest recesses of the mind. So, moving forward here on the 19th, the moon is going to start to move into this association of Rahu and Mars. And so now this becomes very interesting because the moon is exalted in Taurus, as we know, and Mars is not in a bad position, but he's not in his full dignity, right? Mars would rather be in Scorpio or Aries or even Capricorn in its exaltation, not quite so comfortable here in the sign of Taurus, where the determination is there, the ethic, the drive to get things done is there, but Mars isn't getting those fast results that Mars really wants. This bull is very slow moving as it is breaking down barriers, as it's pushing forward. It's a slow build, right? And Rahu is happy here as well in the sign of Taurus. Rahu is friends with Venus, where there is a lot that has to do with our desires, our goals, our dreams, our wishes. With Rahu, that endless hunger for more. And so the only one that's really uncomfortable here is Mars, as he's being sandwiched between the moon and Rahu. And so this really becomes a time where you want to be careful of your desires, your impulses, as Mars is really agitated. As we know, when Mars becomes agitated, this can turn into aggression, impulsive behavior, reckless behavior. And so you really want to watch to see what state of mind you are in. Are you giving into your desires? Especially in Taurus, are you giving into your material desires, your material pleasure? Is there something here where you're finding yourself overindulging in these things, where you can't control your impulses? Then that means there's a lot of shadow work here that needs to be done. Again, this is a shadowy planet where there is this aspect to Rahu that's very cunning, very sneaky, that's about taking shortcuts and getting what you want. And so you want to be careful that you are not on that shadow aspect of Rahu. Are you using Rahu properly? Are you using Rahu to achieve your goals and accomplishments, or is this becoming an obsession, an impulsive behavior? This really becomes a central focus here. And of course, if you want to know more about that Mars and Taurus transit, once again, Mars is going to be with Rahu throughout the entire transit. But especially as Mars gets close to Rahu, these impulses, these desires become even more strong. And with the moon in there, drawing that into the mind. So this becomes huge. And so, again, if you want to know more about how this Mars and Taurus transit is affecting you, make sure to check out that Mars and Taurus video. Now, on the 28th, we have a full moon, and this is going to happen in the Hasta Nakshatra. So this is a Virgo full moon. And remember that Hasta Nakshatra is represented by the hand. It is all about working with your hands, the creativity, the writing, the service, the helping, the supporting. This is about giving out a helpful hand to those in need. And so this really becomes a strong, practical, hardworking, caring part of Virgo, where those healing qualities, those creative skills, those technical skills start to come out of Mercury. So this really is a great time here during this full moon in Hasta to give away the help that's needed to those who need it, to focus on your destiny, your purpose, to work hard towards your dreams. And for many of you who have been doing this work, this becomes a culmination of that potential, right? For many of you who have been putting in the effort, putting in the work, using that Virgo energy, that creative, that technical, that logical, practical energy to make these things happen, this can give you great results. This can give you success. This can take you towards your destiny during this full moon. So, again, we're going to talk more about these placements as we come into each of your signs. But the last major transit that's taking place here is Mercury in Pisces. So, Mercury is going to shift from Aquarius into Pisces on the last day of March. And so this becomes interesting because Mercury is not happy in the sign of Pisces, right? Mercury is exalted in Virgo, and so this is its debilitation in Pisces, where it falls here in Pisces. And so with Mercury at its fall position, it's not quite functioning properly. Mercury really is about the logic, the intellect, the technical skills, the communication. And now it has to come into these deep waters of Pisces where everything is imaginative, spiritual. And so this becomes a confusing time for many if you are trying to use your logic to understand. Mercury is giving us these very unusual, creative, inspirational, out of the box ideas. And so if you're not able to expand your thinking and to see past the details or the logical understanding, this can become very confusing. This can become very disorganized. So again, we're going to talk more about that depending on where this actually falls in your chart. So let's go ahead and shift forward here to those of you who have a Cancer moon or Cancer ascendant. So for those who have a Cancer moon or Cancer ascendant, of course, we're going to start out with that moon in your third house. And so this is great. This is the moon in Virgo, very technical, here in your third house of communication, here in your third house of your actual courage to go out and to make the deals, to communicate your thoughts, to get things done in your business life. And this becomes a very technical house. And so with the moon here, this becomes a great opportunity to tap into your creative skills, to tap into your technical abilities, to achieve different things in your life. And so this is really a great time, again, to tap into your imagination, your creativity, your intellect at this time, and to use that to go towards your goals and achievements. And especially with this being in opposition, looking at your ninth house, this can be a great time to work on a project. This can be a great time for writing, a great time for learning a new subject. This really is a time to tap into that intellect, that creativity there in that third house. And so, with those communication skills, you might be seeking out some wisdom. You might be wanting to connect to a teacher, to a guide. You might be wanting to teach and guide others with your knowledge at this time. This becomes a great time to tap into those skills. Now, as the moon shifts ahead here on the 5th, the moon is going to, of course, conjunct K2, which is going to be in your 5th house. Again, creative skills that you can tap into here, especially with this conjunction happening in Jeshta, where there is a lot here that you can tap into as far as your creative skills, as far as your deep introspection, and actually using that and working and striving towards your goals with that dedication and focusing heavily on that, right? Jeshta really is within that Pisces portion of Scorpio, where it's tapping deep within the psyche. These deep imaginative ideas and creative insight that you can pull on and bring out to the surface here. And so this is really great, and especially as this will be looking at your 11th house, where we have this Rahu energy, which is activating that 11th house where you're having these big hopes, these big dreams, right? Rahu is quite happy in this position of the 11th house, as that is the original house of Aquarius. And so there is a lot here in terms of thinking about your desires, your hopes, your dreams, your long term plans that can really pull through for you if you are willing to tap into that creativity, willing to tap into your ideas and your intuition and your inner knowing, using those internal thoughts to strive towards your goals. Now, moving forward here on the 9th, we are going to see the moon start to shift here closer into this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. And so this is going to happen in your 7th house of Capricorn. A lot here in terms of being able to work in business partnerships, being able to connect to others. Again, you have all of this creative activation that is happening here where you can really use these skills, your imagination, your creativity, and bounce ideas off of others, collaborate with others, partner up with others, talk to your business partners that you're connected to, really throwing those ideas out there to strive towards growth in your business, right? This is Jupiter and Saturn, where you have this discipline, this higher knowing, this understanding to really grow and move up the ladder here, especially with Saturn in his own sign here in your 7th house, where there's a lot here in terms of this growth, this progress that you can make that's always been here, right? Since the beginning of this transit, where you can really strive towards your success, strive towards your goals in your business and your partnerships. And especially with Pluto here, a lot that is changing and transforming in this area for you, where you can really take apart the old and put together something new that can really help you to benefit in your career and partnerships. So on the 13th, we have this new moon happening in Shadabashah. And so this is going to be a new moon that is happening for you in your 8th house. And there's a lot going on here in your 8th house, as this is where the sun, Venus, Mercury, and Neptune are all hanging out. And so there is a lot here in terms of, again, tapping into your deeper creative side, a lot in terms of going deeper. This 8th house of the natural sign of Scorpio, of really digging deep, right? Where there's a lot here in terms of your partnerships, your connections, your resources that you can really tap into and hone into, and a lot that you're transforming and growing and evolving during this time in your business and your finances and your goals and achievements, and a lot that you're doing behind the scenes to actually grow and build up this business. So, all of these little steps, all of these little things that you're working on and planning and piecing together, really helping to build and create something brand new for you. And so, this is where a lot of changes can come through during this new moon. You can see a lot of results. If you were looking for those results of your changes, you can start to see little progress that's giving you that sneak peek of what's to come. Where there's a lot that is coming up here in terms of the transformation, in terms of this ability to grow and mold and break these things down to create something new. So, creativity becomes a huge factor here in the month of March for many of you who have a Cancer moon or Cancer ascendant. Really using those skills, really honing on in on those skills becomes a huge central focus here. Now, Mars is also coming in close to Rahu around this time as well. And so we're going to see Mars start to come closer into this Rahu energy up in your 11th house, where there's a lot of focus here again on your hopes, your dreams, really giving you that energy, that activation to go after the things that you want is a huge theme of this. And so there's a lot that you can achieve now with this motivation, this drive for success to reach new heights, a lot that you can really tap into during this time. And again, this can be a time where you're wanting to learn, you're wanting to grow, you're wanting to explore. And this is really helping to receive those gains to really reach your higher goals and ambitions. So, this becomes a huge focus here where many of you are focusing on business, but even if this isn't business, there's a huge focus on a project, on a vision, on a dream that you are accomplishing and working towards during this time. Now, on the 14th, the sun is going to shift into Pisces. And so here the sun comes out into your ninth house. Again, this is where you can see some of the things that you've been working on behind the scenes starting to come out into the light. This is where you can start to really shine with this sun coming out into the ninth house, where the projects, the creations, the business, all that you've been working on starting to really grow and evolve, and you're starting to learn on how you can continue to grow and build more during this time. So this becomes an upward journey for you where you're reaching new heights. You are moving up. And for those of you who have been focusing on education instead of career, this can be a time where you're moving up in your educational life as well, a time where you are achieving new heights. Huge focus on gains that you can achieve during this time. Huge focus on moving up the ranks during this time for many of you with a Cancer ascendant or Cancer moon. Now, on the 19th, the moon is, of course, going to meet up with Mars and Rahu. So, this is going to happen here in your 11th house. Again, huge time where you can achieve hopes and dreams. The moon is your chart ruler and it's going to activate your 11th house in its exaltation. So, this becomes a huge time where you can gain a lot of wealth, a lot of achievements. You can gain support from others. This can be a huge time for you to move up in the ladder and to really achieve a great deal of wealth and success. This is tremendous as this energy is strongly activating that 11th house. And the moon loves being up in the 11th house, but especially for you, Cancer, as that is your exaltation. So on the 28th, we are going to have a full moon in Hasta that is going to take place there in your third house. So again, there's this huge theme around education, around moving up in ranks, around building up your business, around learning more, growing more. And so again, for many of you, whether you are building up your career, whether you are moving up in education, whether you are learning something new, experiencing something new, there's this huge upward movement that is happening here for you in March. And so, for many of you, these projects, these studies, these things in your life that you've been working on building and moving towards is taking full sweep during this month of March for you. This is a tremendous amount of room for you to grow and improve and move up in rank. Now, on the 31st, the last day here of March, Mercury's also going to shift into Pisces. And usually Mercury in Pisces doesn't do as well, but this is going to be Mercury up in your ninth house, where again, this feels like a graduation. This feels like something big where you are achieving a project, where you're working towards a creative part of your life. So for some of you, you may be working towards graduating, working towards getting a degree, working towards completing a project, working towards learning a new subject, working towards these plans for the future of traveling, of building the life that you want. A lot here in terms of these open possibilities that you are beginning to build and create for yourself, where you're coming into a place of graduation in your life. And again, this doesn't have to be educational. This can be a graduation in another area where you're reaching a high point, where you're succeeding in an area. But there's something big here about moving up for those of you with a Cancer moon or Cancer ascendant. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the cards that I pulled for you. And I pulled this from the Vedic Oracle deck from Joanne Victoria. So I'm going to go into a greater depth to really go into these cards and give my review and opinion of this in a future video. But here to sort of give you a sneak peek of what this is looking like moving forward here. Now, the first card that comes up is the Aslesha Nakshatra, right? And this is a huge part about why I love this deck. This really goes into Vedic astrology, where it goes into the nakshatras. And so this will be one of my all-time favorite decks moving forward here. But again, huge focus on transformation with that Aslesha Nakshatra, the serpent, where what are you committing to? Right? That symbol of the serpent is actually about holding on to something, holding on to this spark of creativity, this spark of inspiration that completely transforms your life. And so for many of you, you are going into greater depths, you're grasping something, right? Again, there's this huge focus for many of you on education or on career, where you're grasping something and you're moving up in the ranks, you're achieving something great. You're going deeper than you have before. This growth is tremendous for many of you. Now, our next card here is the second house. Again, connected to your money, your wealth, your possessions. There's something big here where many of you are achieving greatness, where many of you are building up your security, building up your prospects. Many of you are looking to gain that security and wealth. And it's coming through with all of this activation that's going on in your eighth house. Remember that eighth house aspects to the second house always. There's a huge focus here on wealth and your assets, your investments. There's something big here in terms of gaining during this time. And this doesn't have to be around money, but there is a huge focus for many of you where you're building up your finances, you're building up your security during this time. Now, the next card here is the ninth house. And so again, huge focus on your ninth house, where there's something big around education for many of you. There's something big here about moving up to a higher position, moving up to a higher rank, higher education, higher project, higher outlook on life, where many of you are moving up. You are looking ahead, you're looking forward. So there's a huge focus here on this expansion, this growth in your life that is really starting to take off here for many of you. Now, next card here is the Kritika Nakshatra. Again, this really becomes about that activation of your creativity, cutting through the nonsense, getting your tasks done, focusing on the mission at hand, and cutting out the things that don't need to be there anymore. And so, again, there's a huge focus on transformation, where you're letting go of these things that no longer serve you, and it's making room for new possibilities. And this becomes about a huge focus on your work life, on your career, on your efforts, of really focusing on getting the task done, moving forward, moving towards your goals. There's a huge push here, and especially with this last card being the Jeshta Nakshatra. Again, the deeper part of the mind, where this is tapping into the creativity, tapping into the ingenuity, being able to really have this deep insight where, again, there's something big here about your education. But also, this becomes about security because the symbol here of this nakshatra is an umbrella, right? This becomes about protection, where there's something big where you're building up your finances, you're building up your security, you're building up the stability in your life to support yourself and your family for some of you. If you're alone, just to support yourself and your vision. But there's something big here where you're working towards something big, you're building up in your creativity, in your education, in your career. So, this is a great time to really stay motivated and to focus in on your creativity for those of you with the Cancer moon and Cancer ascendant. So, that was your horoscope for Cancer. Let's go ahead and move forward into the sign of Scorpio. So, this is for those of you with a Scorpio moon or Scorpio ascendant. And of course, we're going to start off this month of March here with the moon in Virgo. So this is the moon in your 11th house of gains. Again, huge theme here for those of you at the water signs where you're receiving an achievement and accomplishment, you're growing. And as this moon is here in your 11th house, really gives you a great ability to gain success, to focus in on those dreams, those wishes, those achievements. Remember that that 11th house is originally controlled by Aquarius, which is that sign that is ruled by Rahu. This endless quest for more that becomes very ambitious, becomes about your hopes and your dreams, right? Your material gains. And as the moon is here, you are focused on something big. For those of you with a Scorpio ascendant, you're looking ahead for your hopes, your dreams, for what you want to see happen in your life, right? And this is a huge time to continue to work towards that, to continue to put that focus in on what you are looking for in the future, which many of you are strongly focused on your future anyway, with Virgo here in the 11th. Huge focus on what you want to see happen in your life, huge vision of what you want to achieve and accomplish. Now, as we move forward on the 5th, the moon is coming into a conjunction in your first house. And so you are strongly focused on yourself and your vision and your plans. K2 has been here in your first house, really giving you greater insight in your life, right? Many of you who are Scorpio ascendant or Scorpio moon who are wondering why you have been going through these sudden ups and downs and internal transformations and sudden realizations. K2 is there in your first house, bringing a lot into your awareness, right? Bringing a lot up to the surface. And of course, K2 is at home in Scorpio, it's at home in your very sign. But there's something big here where you are seeing and tapping into something that you've never really seen before, something deep that really is strongly connected to who you are, right? You're bringing a lot of awareness into the forefront. So there's a lot of spiritual revelations coming up for many of you here with a Scorpio ascendant. And because of this, this really is a huge moment of transformation for you, right? Many of you with a Scorpio ascendant, you are transforming anyway, but this takes it on a deeper level where K2 is trying to activate you on a spiritual level where there's a lot of deep insight, a lot of deep knowledge that is coming up to the surface, a lot that has been within you the whole time that you're just now starting to realize. And for many of you, even realizing this through your relationships, as Rahu is in that opposition over into your seventh house. So, a lot here that spiritually and energetically you can gain out of your relationship, a lot of deeper wisdom and insight during this time for you. But as the moon comes into this, It even becomes even more clearer where this is really activating the mind, and especially in that Jyeshta Nakshatra there at the end of Scorpio. And so, how this affects you, Scorpio, really depends upon the degrees of your ascendant, but this really is activating something profoundly deep in you during this time. Now, on the 9th, we have the moon coming into that conjunction with Jupiter and Saturn in your third house. And Jupiter and Saturn has been here in your third house for a while and has really been activating your courage, your self expression, where this is now a time where you feel this push to come out and start communicating more, start going after the things that you want more. So, this Jupiter Saturn really trying to encourage you to build your own world around finally getting to express the things that you want, finally getting to open up to new possibilities, finally gaining that courage to go out and grab the things that you want. This is a huge focus for those of you with a Scorpio ascendant, as this has been throughout this year of 2021. But especially as the Sun and Mercury and Venus were initially hanging out there in that third house. But even with Pluto there, there's a lot that really is changing as far as your courage, as far as your communication skills, as far as being able to really express yourself more. There's a lot that is coming up here where you're gaining more courage, you're becoming more open during this time. And this is a huge push for many of you in your business life, for many of you to take on new opportunities. Again, Rahu is there in that seventh house supporting this, where there's a lot that's opening up through your relationships, through your business, through the people around you, through this push to be more expressive and creating a whole new world for you. And this really comes into view as the moon comes here as well, where there's a lot here in terms of these fluctuating thoughts and opinions, and really thinking and contemplating about these ideas and these things that you want to communicate. And so this becomes a great time to really start expressing yourself, getting your ideas across, opening up to people as the moon is sitting here in your third house. Now, moving forward here on the 13th, we have this new moon happening in the Shadabasha Nakshatra. So this is going to be a new moon in your fourth house. Again, there's something huge here about you wakening up within yourself, seeing the hidden truth that's always been there within yourself for many of you with a Scorpio ascendant. That fourth house, remember, is a house of past lives, of karmic connections. That fourth house really is this place of the heart, right? This is your soul connection where your soul holds all of the memories and patterns. That fourth house initially is that house of Cancer, which is controlled by the moon. And so there is something big to say for those of you with a Scorpio ascendant, where so much of this deeper insight and this subconscious understanding is coming up to the surface for you. This is giving you the ability to really tap into new parts of yourself. And especially with the new moon in your fourth house, this becomes a great time to actually do the opposite of what we would say most of the time for a new moon. Instead of going out, starting a new project, this becomes a great time to really explore yourself in a new way, to go into that place of rest and reflection, to go into your sanctuary. This is where a lot of new insight and new understanding within yourself can come up to the surface. So let's move ahead here. And around the same time here, we're going to see Mars coming to a conjunction with Rahu over there in your seventh house. And so this really becomes a time where there's a strong focus on your relationships, on your connections. There's a lot that you can gain from others. And so really being open to the insight of other people, being willing to learn and willing to hear the thoughts from others really becomes a huge focus. And so not only is this a time of really tapping inward and connecting inward with yourself for some understanding and realization, but also finding that reflection through your relationships as well. You might find that during this Mars and Taurus transit, that there's a lot that's being reflected back to you karmically, right? There's a lot of energy and potential that's coming from your relationships for you to grow, for you to expand, for you to achieve more things in your life. Again, K2 hanging out in your first house is quite the position where there's a lot that is coming up to the surface. There's a lot of realizations, a lot of internal growth that can come from this. So moving ahead here on the 14th, the sun is going to shift into Pisces. And so the sun is going to move into your fifth house. And so this really becomes a time of expressing that creative insight, right? There's been a lot here for many of you where with that new moon in your fourth house, you were able to gain a lot of insight, right? Especially those of you who were able to go in and self reflect and really tap into that inner knowing. There's a lot here that is coming up to the surface, a lot that is being shown to you, right? A lot of hidden knowledge, a lot of this internal knowing that's really coming up. And this really gives you a tremendous amount of ability to tap into your creative side, to tap into your inspiration, your inner knowing, and to use this to create and to build the things that you want. Again, that fifth house is looking up at that 11th house, but there is a lot here in terms of what you can gain and build and create in terms of your dreams that is coming from so much insight, right? This whole theme of this March horoscope for many of you with a Scorpio ascendant and Scorpio moon becomes about all of this deep insight that is coming up for you, right? Where for Cancer, it was about gaining the wealth. Here in Scorpio, this becomes about gaining greater insight, gaining greater depth. There's something huge here where you're growing from the inside. You're bringing up hidden knowledge to the surface at this time. So on the 19th, the moon is going to move closer here to Mars and Rahu. And so this really becomes impulsive in terms of your desire to build and create business wise, partnership wise. And so this actually becomes a really great transit for those of you with a Scorpio ascendant, where again, there's a lot of lessons, a lot that you can reflect and gain out of your partnerships and connections during this time. Now, this can also bring up some anger issues and conflicts within some of the context of your relationships also. So you want to be careful of some heated conflicts and tension, especially with Mars sitting here in that seventh house. There's a lot of tension, a lot of disagreement that can come up due to your speech because what is Mars looking at from that seventh house, your 10th house, but also your second house of speech, where you can say some harsh things that could bring up some potential wounds and disagreements. Your partner can say some harsh things that can bring up a lot karmically to the surface that really needs to be worked through and processed on a deeper level. And so there's a lot here in terms of growth and development for those of you with a Scorpio ascendant or Scorpio moon. Now, on the 28th, we have a full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra. So this is going to take place there in your 11th house again, where there's a lot that you can gain in terms of putting your energy out, creating the things that you want, building and working towards your destiny, your purpose of what you want to see come into existence. So there's a lot here in terms of your creative potential, in terms of what you can build and create, where you're getting this insight, this deeper wisdom that is coming from deep within, coming from this place of reflection, of going inward once again. Now, last transit here happening on the 31st is Mercury shifting into Pisces. So again, this is Mercury going into your fifth house, where normally this transit of Mercury in Pisces is very difficult, but this is going into a very auspicious house for you. For those of you who have a Scorpio ascendant or Scorpio moon, where again, this can give you the tools to communicate and work on the things that you want to create, to work on those projects, to work on your vision, your plan for the future, your goals, your hopes and dreams. And so this becomes such a deep and insightful time for you. For those of you with a Scorpio moon or ascendant, there's a lot that is coming up karmically, giving you the tools, giving you the insight to achieve the things that you want in life. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the cards that came up. And I am using the Vedic Oracle deck by Joanne Victoria. So if you are interested, there is a link down below in the description, but I will get into a deeper insight and review later on in a future video, sort of giving you a sneak peek here at what this is going to look like. So the first card that comes up here is the Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. Remember, that is a nakshatra that is found within Pisces, where there is a dual nature that is happening here. And this is really becoming about going deep within, right? Going into that place of imagination, of dreams, of spirituality, where there's a lot of deeper insight that is coming up to the surface. Again, this becomes a huge time for you, Scorpio, of really gathering deeper wisdom and insight from within, this reflection, this isolation, this inward, right? And so for many of you, this becomes a great time to meditate. This becomes a great time to have a dream journal by you. This becomes a great time to really sit in silence and to take that time to reflect within yourself. Where there's a lot of wisdom and insight that's waiting to come up to the surface. And especially with our next card here, which is Sagittarius. This becomes a time of going on a journey, on an exploration, but within. This is about going deep within, looking within yourself, where there's a lot of wisdom here that is coming up to the surface, and a lot that you can gain as far as wisdom with Jupiter and Saturn sitting there in your third house looking at your ninth house. There's a lot that you can gain from your teachers, from your guides, from your elders at this time that can give you a tremendous amount of insight, along with your karma and reflections that's coming up through relationships and through these experiences of sitting in isolation and reflection. There's so much here that you can gain in terms of philosophical and spiritual insight during this time, and really giving you that ability to hone in on your gifts. The Hasta Nakshatra is our next card here, using your skills, using your creativity, using your technical abilities to really dive in and connect inward again with those gifts, those unrealized insights coming up to the surface for you. And very auspicious, we have the extra nakshatra that came up as well. But this is a big time for you to achieve greatness, right? This is this blessing that is shining on you at this time, where there's a lot that can come through again from the inner workings of the psyche, a lot of deep wisdom from your ancestors, from your karma, from your past that is coming up to the surface for you to tap into. So that was your March 2021 horoscope for those of you with a Scorpio moon or Scorpio ascendant. Let's go ahead and shift forward to our last water sign here, which is Pisces. So for those of you with a Pisces moon or Pisces ascendant, of course, we're going to start off this month with the moon in Virgo, which will sit in your seventh house. And so there becomes a huge focus here on other people as we are shifting ahead into the month of March, where some of you are getting new friendships, some of you are more social at this time. There's a lot going on socially for you, for those of you who have Pisces moon or Pisces ascendant. And so this becomes a great time to really seek out deeper wisdom and deeper advice from those around you, from the people that you're connecting inward. Remember that that seventh house is not just about marriage. It becomes about business and it becomes about other people, your relationship to others in general. There's a lot of insight and great knowledge that you can gain from these connections. So on the 5th, the moon will shift forward to come closer to K2, which is sitting there in your ninth house. Great position as it is in this nakshatra of Jeshta. Great insight. This ninth house being your house of philosophy, of higher wisdom, and this being in the Jeshta nakshatra is very deep Piscean part of Scorpio, of going to the deepest part of the mind, pulling that inspiration out, making these dramatic changes in the world. And with this being such a worldly placement for you, this is such a great time for you to teach, to guide, to inspire, to light up the world of others around you. Again, your social environment becomes very vibrant during this time, where this becomes a great time to really step into that place of guiding, of helping, of teaching, of sharing your wisdom, your creativity, your insight during this time, staying true to your mission and your purpose. So, this is huge for those of you with a Pisces ascendant or Pisces moon. And of course, from that ninth house, the moon and K2 are looking at your third house of communication. So, again, strong time to share your thoughts, your ideas, your visions, your insight. Now, moving forward, the moon is going to come closer into this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, which is up in that 11th house. Again, a lot that you can gain from your social networks, a lot that you can gain from those around you. Huge time to really connect to your resources, towards your people, towards your group, who can really help to bring in a tremendous amount of insight. And really, for those of you with this transit, there's something big here about you building up a better circle of friends, of associates, of clients. There's a lot that is shifting and changing, building a new world around these connections. So, moving forward here on the 13th, we have a new moon in Aquarius in that Shadabasha Nakshatra. And so, this is a new moon happening back in your 12th house. Very interesting. This 12th house is your natural house and becomes a house of isolation and spirituality. And so having the new moon there is not your typical new moon. This is really a time where you want to connect inward again to your deeper insight, to your creativity, your imagination, and pulling that out to actually serve others, to help others. That new moon is going to be aspecting over to your sixth house of service, of work, of conflict, of responsibility. And so there's so much here in terms of what you can do to help to impact the lives of others with your deeper insight, with your desire to give away. Remember that this 12th house is a house of charity, a house of losses, a house of spirituality, where this becomes a tremendous time to help to influence the lives of others, to help to give out the wisdom, the resources, the service that can help to change the lives of others, to help others get out of their place of conflict and challenge. Now, you also want to be careful because with this new moon in the 12th house, this can really give you a desire to escape reality, where this can be a time of a lot of daydreaming, a lot of imagining, where you want to focus strongly on your health at this time. That sixth house is being aspected from the 12th, where a lot of things that you're not quite focusing on in your health and in your well being that you want to pay attention to, because this can manifest into an illness. And especially with the sun that is in a combustion with Venus sitting back in that 12th house. Venus is your natural exaltation. Very difficult position where this is potentially bringing out these cycles subconsciously of overindulgence, of wrong patterns. Venus is not functioning properly in that combustion. Remember that this is a time where the desires for pleasure, for comfort, for enjoyment can really be blown out of proportion. And this can also get very lazy, very sluggish. Venus really does not feel comfortable in this combustion with the sun here. So you want to be cautious of how you're handling your health as the sun is going to be away in this new moon over in your 12th house. Now, around the same time, we have Mars coming closer to Rahu, and this is going to happen in your third house. Again, strong focus on your communication, on your ability to teach, to guide, to connect to others. You have so much at this time to gain through your connections and to really tap into that insight to communicate, to get those thoughts across. And there's a strong desire to do this with Rahu sitting in that third house. Now, on the 14th, the sun is going to shift into Pisces. And so, a lot of this Aquarius activity back in your 12th house is going to shift forward into your first. And as the sun shifts into your first house, this gives greater self awareness. This gives greater vision as the sun is coming out into the first. You're able to see clearly. You're able to have this clear conscious awareness as the sun is shifting here. But you want to be cautious here as the sun comes in. This can blast the ego. The sun coming into the house of self can really blow the ego out of proportion, and this can give a strong ego boost where there's a lot here in terms of trying to defend and protect yourself, trying to over dominate with this sun position in the first. And so you really want to focus on those positive qualities of the sun, of that self awareness, of that ability to be confident, to lead, to take charge, versus this ego, this dominance, this controlling factor as the sun is shifting forward here in your first. And again, this becomes a time to step up to your calling, to step up to your duty, your purpose in life. This sun shifting into the first, giving you this ability to stay true to your dharma, your path in life. So, moving forward here on the 19th, the moon is going to come closer to this Mars Rahu combination. And this becomes very interesting as this house here becomes very challenging for you, right? Venus is actually controlling that third house and that eighth house. And so there is something huge here where all of this activation that's happening is very difficult for those of you with a Pisces ascendant. You want to be careful of being overly impulsive with your ideas, with your opinions. This is Mars that is agitated. He is sandwiched in between this moon and Rahu, and the moon is exalted. It's happy here, and Rahu is a friend to Venus. It's happy in this position. Mars is in its neutral position where it's not quite functioning as it wants to. This Mars position in Taurus, not going as fast as it wants, not getting the results the way it wants. There's so much agitation and irritation that can come up here to the surface where are you not getting your thoughts across the way you want? Are you not getting your beliefs, your vision, your philosophy across to others the way that you want? And this can really blow up as this is opposing that ninth house of wisdom and philosophy, looking at it where you can be very aggressive, very forceful trying to get your point across, especially with that sun activating your first house. Being very cautious of ego during this time, as you can become very aggressive, very dogmatic with all of this activation. Now, moving forward here on the 28th, there will be a full moon in the Hasta Nakshatra. And so the moon is going to return to your seventh house. And so this is where you're really going to see those karmic backlogs in terms of your relationships. You may see some people leaving, right? Where for those of you who were frustrated trying to get your point across, trying to get the belief across, trying to be understood, many of these people are clearing out anyway. And so this is why, again, you want to be cautious of that ego, because the full moon's going to wipe out everyone who is no longer meant to stay in your life. This is a clearing, a culmination in your partnerships, in your business for some of you, in your romantic relationships for some of you, where there's something big that's coming full circle here. And so this is really a time where you want to stay focused on your path, on your calling. There's a lot of strings that are being pulled from behind the scenes where this is all going to work out for you in the long run. Now, on the 31st of March, we have our last transit of Mercury shifting into Pisces. So, this is Mercury coming into your first house. Very complicated position as Mercury is debilitated in Pisces, right? Mercury is this sign of logic and details and communication, and it's coming into the deep, dark depths of the ocean here in your sign of Pisces, where the communication is becoming very mumbled and jumbled underneath the water, can't be clearly understood. There's something to say here about this style of communication as Mercury shifting into your first house, where again, those who are meant to understand your message are going to come across it. Those who are not going to understand this. There's something big where your communication is becoming very spiritual, very philosophical, very wise, right? Very deep, where this is meant for the ears of certain people and only those certain people. And again, this is why the full moon is there in your seventh house, where there's a lot karmically that's being cleaned out for you. There's a lot here in terms of the people who you need to be in your life, because this is the Hasta Nakshatra, which is connected to destiny in a lot of ways. And so there is something to say here about the people who are meant to grow with you are going to stay with you. The people who are no longer meant to be there are being cleared and wiped out of this equation. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the cards. And I am using the Vedic Oracle deck by Joanne Victoria. So if you're interested in that, I will leave a link down below and I will get into a deeper interpretation of my review of these cards. But to give you a bit of a sneak peek here, we have these cards here in your horoscope. And the first card here is very auspicious. This is the extra nakshatra, right? Because we have 27 nakshatras in the Vedic system, but there's actually an extra nakshatra that we use in those Chinese lunar mansions. And so we have this extra auspicious nakshatra, which is very much about victor, very much about coming out victorious, about good luck, about these gains and fortune. And there's a lot here again that's coming through where everything that is feeling a bit misunderstood or doesn't make sense as far as trying to get your point across, as far as trying to make things work, all of this is going to come full circle where you're going to get the results that you desire in the end, right? This full moon is bringing so much to a closure, a completion where all is going to work out as it's meant to. Now, the next card here is the Rohini Nakshatra, where again, this is a time of really focusing on your dreams, on your passion, all of that Capricorn going on up in your 11th house, where you have these hopes, these dreams, and a lot that you can gain through your connections. Remember that this Rohini Nakshatra happens in Taurus. Taurus rules the throat. There's so much here in terms of using your voice, your connection, your communication that becomes a strong factor in this month of March for you. Very social, very friendly. This energy is really going to give you a lot of results as you're seeking out information, as you're connecting to others, as you're being open to the knowledge and the information and the insight moving forward here. Now, the next card is the Pushya Nakshatra. And so this becomes about nurturing yourself. This becomes about your purpose, your duty, right? Really making sure that you're fully nourished, that you're fully aligned with your purpose, your dharma in life. And so, again, this becomes very karmic for you, where so much is falling into the correct place. All that you really have to do during this month is to follow your dharma, which is that sharing of knowledge, of wisdom, right? Sagittarius controlling that 10th house, where this becomes all about teaching and guiding others. And with that ninth house being activated, there's so much here where you are karmically being led to just follow your natural duty and responsibility here in the month of March, which is to share your knowledge, to help others, to teach, to guide, to inspire. This is your purpose during this time, and especially with our next card here. Our last card is the Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, which is all about using this deeper spiritual insight to influence others, right? The two swords bringing the two worlds together, this humanitarian, eccentric, otherworldly ability, and using that, taking that, and putting that towards your purpose, your duty, your work, your responsibility. And so, this is such an auspicious time for you, where this is just about going with the flow of your destiny, of your purpose, of your duty in life. So, that was your horoscope for Pisces, ascendant, or moon. And this was your March 2021 horoscope for all water signs. If you enjoyed this, make sure to hit that like button, as well as leaving a comment. If there's any suggestions that you'd like me to talk about here as far as Vedic astrology goes, leave that down below in the comments. I do have a class available if you would like to learn more about Vedic astrology in depth. I have that available in the Facebook group, Astrology Lessons with Daquan Jones, and in the Patreon. And I will let you all know when this becomes available on Udemy as well. The links for all of that is down below in the description, along with the comments. If you're new to this channel, you've never seen my face before, welcome. And I hope you all enjoyed this horoscope. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any new content coming up here in the future as we're pushing ahead into this brand new month of March. A lot on the horizons as we're starting to come closer here towards the end of winter and looking forward to new opportunities and possibilities. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any new content, along with the notification bell. That is vitally important so that you don't miss out on any new updates moving forward. I want to thank you all so much for joining, and I will see you all in the next video.